You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
This is episode 148 of Retired Racehorse Radio on the Horse Radio Network, part of Equine Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, Cashel Company, and Ride TV. Retired Racehorse Radio is your guide to the adoption, care, and training of the retired racehorse. Brought to you in cooperation with Retired Racehorse Project and New Vocations Racehorse Adoption Program.
On today's show, we connect with Patrick Cummings to learn more about the young organization National Thoroughbred Alliance and the role it has to play in the future of the racing industry. We asked New Vocations' Amanda Tucker about best practices to safely introduce your new horse to his new pasture pals. And last but never least, we wrap with our Adoptable Horse of the Week. Stay tuned.
This is Joy Orr in Detroit, Michigan.
And this is Kristen Kovach-Bentley in Jamestown, New York, and you're listening to Retired Racehorse Radio.
And they're off on Retired Racehorse Radio, the podcast that is your guide to the adoption, care, and training of the retired racehorse.
Kristen, we've made it to daylight savings, which is what every horse girl waits for in North America. We're so excited for it. All of our Southern Hemisphere listeners, I'm sorry. I don't know if you're going through the same thing, but I hope you're enjoying your last few days before your winter. But we are enjoying coming into spring slowly but surely.
Yeah, like it's still light out now. Like normally we're like, oh, we're recording in the dark.
Normally dark. And I feel like it's more like a slumber party podcast. Like I should have gym jams and a hot cocoa when I'm talking to you.
I know, I'm still wearing like normal adult pants. I just want everyone to know that. So
it's very,
you're welcome.
Very foreign. Like it's just very foreign right now. But you know what also comes with this territory is shedding season. How are your boys doing?
The thoroughbreds are dropping hair like crazy. Wes tends to hang on to his coat a little longer, but his coat is like finer and softer. He's very plush. He's like a stuffed animal.
Cute.
And
I love
he won't even bother until like May. So he just is like, nope, this is mine. And we're like, fine, you do you, man. You know, like, I know like sometimes that's a early alarm bell for Cushing's, but he has zero other indicators that he's like at all pre-Cushing. So I'm like, I think he just holds his coat longer. It's just the way he is. So
nice.
The thoroughbreds are gross. They are like I groom jobber and inevitably I inhale it down my lung and then I'm like coughing and hacking because I've eaten the hair.
New wardrobe accessory is what I'm learning. And I've been in horses long enough that I should know this. Like I've warned all of my students, do not wear lip gloss and do not wear chapstick at the barn. You can handle chapped lips for 2 hours. It's just not worth it.
Well, and like I don't understand in the year of our Lord 2025 why we haven't figured out how to make equestrian gear that doesn't have hair stick to it like crazy. Yeah. Like I'm wearing like, you know, like fairly name brand equestrian stuff. And I'm like, why? Why am I so hairy? Like, why have we not figured out how to just make this stuff like fly off? I don't know.
It is quite gross. And also it comes with the shock gift that you get from it. I don't know how much of an electrical static charge you get from grooming your horses, but I seem to become a new Energizer bunny. And I have unfortunately shocked my horse more than I want to say.
I'm
like, this is her own fault.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, I can't help it, Mom. Stop it. Yeah. I mean, with the advance of like daylight saving or the end of it, I don't remember which way it goes, but either way, like now my mom's coming back to ride. So now Wes has his own person again. And now Eric's coming out again because it's not dark when he gets home. So now every horse has a person, which I'd like to think the horses enjoy.
How's your seasonal depression? Feeling okay?
Oh yeah. It's fine. I just stand outside like a potted plant now and I'm like, much better. So
yeah, it's so bizarre how that's a thing. I've been enjoying it. Like it's extra bonding time. I like honestly just take my brush out to the pasture, but now the other mares and Astrid's field know that I have the brush. So I feel like a Disney princess because they all surround me and want scratches. And I'm like, okay, this is fine. This
that's nice.
Mostly feels safe.
Yeah, I would just be smashed because Shorty does not understand like personal space or the size of himself. So
they're not very good at it either. For a group of mares, most of them being chestnut in that field, they are very cuddly and comfortable with each other. We just have one mare. She is a buckskin quarter horse. She's so funny. Like she's the boss mare of the herd. But she also is like a no nonsense kind of girly. So she doesn't necessarily want the cuddles. She did kill a coyote once. Like,
oh, cool.
Yeah, she chased it out of the field and killed it.
Jeez.
So we don't mess with Prada, but she's very sweet to people. Not necessarily like loves all the horse cuddles, but most of the mares are very happy-go-lucky to have everyone touching and just kind of be like this mosh pit of love. It's cute.
Of course, her name is Prada.
I know. She's very cute, though. I've ridden her before. She's very fun.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't done much. We've just been hand walking a little bit, and I rode Jobber once so far.
And you didn't die?
No, he was actually very mature. He was like, no, this is fine. And, we had done our homework and done our hand walking first and set him up for success. So picked a warm day. His other friends were also working at the same time, so there was no like FOMO. And just sort of like picked my battles. So, but yeah, he's also 16 now, so he's maybe kind of maturing a little, maybe by now. I don't know. It's hard to say. I
love that hope for you.
So, yeah, I mean, if we're going on a walking hack for 20 minutes, he was like, okay, fine. I didn't like hit out across the cow pasture because I think that would have been like, woo, that would have been very exciting. But yeah. I'm too old for like the woo anymore. I don't do that. So
honestly, I've been enjoying just kind of like soaking in the sun with my horse. However, I am getting the itch to ride again. So I have volunteered my tribute horse. She's one of our lesson horses. And she is going to putt me around when I feel a need to get in the saddle. So
perfect. There you go. Absorb your sun from horseback.
Yeah, she's like a very gross little mare compared to Astrid. Like Astrid's very dainty, loves to stay clean.
Okay, I was like, what do you mean by gross? Okay, that makes sense.
Peanut loves being gross. She's like, I love being in the mud. I love being covered in food. I love like reeking. So I'm gonna have to get really good at grooming because my horse likes to be perpetually clean, which was something I realized I took for granted. So that I've had to add to the schedule of extra grooming time for Miss Peanut, but she is so sweet. Like honestly, one of the sweetest horses there.
Well, good for you. I'm glad you're getting back to the saddle.
Yes. I need something until Dak and I can decide on a horse we want to buy.
Well, I bet we have another one to tempt you with our adoptable horse of the week later.
No, it's going to be a good episode. I can't wait to get into it. But before we do, we're going to hear from our premier sponsor, Kentucky Performance Products.
Frequently asked questions brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. Question: my friend was telling me that supplementing with omega-3 fatty acids decreased the level of inflammation in horses with arthritis. Is this true? Answer: yes. There have been several peer-reviewed studies that have shown that supplementation with the omega-3 fatty acids known as EPA and DHA will help support healthy levels of inflammation in the joints. The best source of EPA and DHA is fish oil. We often recommend adding a high-quality omega-3 fatty acid supplement, such as Kentucky Performance Products, contribute to the diet of horses who struggle with joint pain and stiffness. A KPP customer named Sarah recently posted a review sharing her experience with Contribute. She wrote, I recently swapped my Western dressage and cow horses over to the Joint Armor and Contribute. Astonishing results! My horses are moving beautifully with more impulsion and suspension in their gaits. You can learn more about Contribute and omega-3 fatty acids EPA and DHA at kppusa.com. Got questions about your feeding program? We can help. Email Karen at questions@kppusa.com or call us at 859-873-2974.
Joy, very pumped to have with us today Pat Cummings, who is here representing the National Thoroughbred Alliance, but also himself has just done a million cool things in the thoroughbred industry and is an overall great guy, very fun to work with. I've worked with him some on the RRP board and in our industry outreach committee. So, Pat, thank you so much for joining us on Retired Racehorse Radio.
Thanks, Kristen. Great to be with you.
Yeah, and I know you've mentioned that you've listened to the show before, which I think is very cool because we love when there is, some crossover with this show between the equestrian side and the racing side because we really are sort of helping to bridge that gap. So thanks for listening in the past, and now it's exciting to have you on.
Yeah, pleasure. I had a couple friends that appeared at some point in the past, and then when I really been diving into my current role, I found myself listening even more just to understand the space even better.
Yeah.
Because it's not like my original it's not my original line, I guess, of work. So, when I try to dive into something, I go head first.
You really do. Yeah, you give it your all. So, yeah, let's talk about that original line of work because I was, reviewing your bio before we put it into our show notes and I was like, man, Pat has done some cool stuff. Like you've worked internationally in racing. So, give us kind of the quick intro, the quick overview of Pat Cummings.
Yeah, I was a horse racing crazed kid from Philadelphia in the late 1980s. And my parents got cable and we got a whole bunch of new channels and there was horse racing. There was like this old cable access channel that showed racing from what was then Philadelphia Park. And I'm like, where has this been my entire short life? I was just fascinated in a way that I think is, it oftentimes takes someone to have direct contact to, I think, be fascinated with horses in the space. And for me, it was just seeing this. And we didn't live far from Philadelphia Park, which is now Parks, just outside of Philadelphia. And my parents would take me once or twice a year, and that got me into it even more. And then I started doing some work in my college years, summers at Philadelphia Park, and was working in the television department there. And it just, spiraled. Racing was always sort of a part-time interest for me. Got out of school and worked in the financial industry for 7 years and had racing on the side that whole time. But then pivoted, went back to school to get my MBA and to pivot full-time into the sport. And it has been that ever since. So I did, one of those side gigs was covering horse racing from Dubai. When there really wasn't a whole lot of coverage of racing in the Middle East, kind of getting to a wider, broader audience. This was like, prime blogging time, maybe 15 years ago or so. And so I really kind of dove into that. On the side, no one was doing it. There was a lot of opportunity. So I was covering the races from afar. Now I would go like once a year to Dubai. And I think I went to 12 consecutive Dubai World Cups at one point, 12 or 13 that I made,
Cool.
which was a lot of fun. And then when I was in another role, I was hired by the Hong Kong Jockey Club. And they asked me to work on a 3-year contract over there. And I did. And I had a chance to sign another one. And I was sort of debating a couple options. Do I come back to the US or do I stay? And I chose to come back, and sort of it changed the trajectory of where things have been for me, which is great. But wow, what a fantastic 3-year experience that was, because, if you're into horse racing, Hong Kong, it's like their only sporting outlet, right? Think of a place as big as New York, with no Yankee Stadium, no Madison Square Garden, no Barclays Center, no Citi Field, just 2 racetracks.
That's incredible.
They're right. That's Hong Kong. And 2 days a week, one day, one night, it just the place lights up and everybody cares about racing. And to have had that experience for 3 years was wonderful. And I hold that very close. And it's sort of at the center of what we do, because they work for it. It doesn't just happen for them. Right? It's not just like, oh, this is the cultural fabric of Hong Kong and therefore people care. No, you have to work hard at it. You have to market the heck out of it. You have to look after the press. You have to, develop and constantly adjust policies. And things don't just happen there, despite maybe some other popular belief that, oh, horse racing is just kind of native to Hong Kong. They've been betting on races there for hundreds of years. They have. But you really have to work at it. And I learned a ton. It was great fun. And I've been back in the US since mid 2018, and working in kind of a variety of strategic advocacy roles. I worked for the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation when it was operational for 5 years, and then got hired by Mike Rapoli to work on what is now the National Thoroughbred Alliance. And it's been a incredibly fun, enlivening, informational, so gosh, what are we now? 17 months. Yeah.
Is that all?
I think late October of 23.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like it's been part of the fabric a little longer, I think, just because.
That's a good thing.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Like, yeah, I mean, because, you guys are out there doing the thing, and talking to the right people and making the right kind of noise, I think. So, yeah, talk a little bit about, what is NTA and why did, Mike get it started and how did he bring you on?
Fair question for those that might not be aware of it, because we don't actually have a public presence, right? So Mike Rapoli is the founder, on X at Rapoli Stable. Mike, incredibly successful entrepreneur. He founded and then later sold both Vitamin Water and the Body Armor brands to Coca-Cola. So he's made it big twice in beverages, which is, that's awesome. But he's done other things. Kind Bars, he was very involved with. Pirate's Booty, kind of healthier snack foods. Today he owns Noble Shoes. Tom Brady's his partner in that. Junkless granola bars. He is a serial entrepreneur and very successful at that. And he probably has over 300 horses throughout his entire essentially network. He doesn't actually own a farm, which is a heck of a lot of horses to have if you don't own a farm.
Right.
But throughout his entire stable, from foals up to retired horses and brood mares, it's over 300 that he has now. Mike has loved the sport similarly to me since childhood. He grew up in New York, Queens, going to Aqueduct as a kid, and just loves it. And now that he is more than just an owner and he's incredibly successful, and he actually does have, I think, some time to offer the sport organizationally, he has been upset with the general trajectory of horse racing. The metrics, for those that don't know, have been pretty negative, right? The full crops for thoroughbreds in America have declined substantially, probably cut in half over the last 20 years. Wagering on horse racing is down. If you don't even account for inflation, it's down about 30%. When you factor in inflation adjusted dollars, it's down more than 50% in the last 20 years. And if you even make some more kind of customer segmentation divisions there, if you take like just the 10 biggest high net worth players, high volume players, take them out of the equation, the market's down like 70% on horse racing wagering. And for someone who loves horse racing, who is a major breeder, has had tremendous success up and down the sport, Mike's like, this is ridiculous. This is a wonderful enterprise. So much fun. His family has so much fun with it. They're so close to their horses, and yet organizationally, the sport is sort of floundering. And he said, look, I'm going to put my time and money and effort into it. And asked me if I would join in that effort to help advocate for improvements within existing organizations across the sport. So people ask me, what do I do? Like, what's your role? You don't even have a website. I can't find what the National Thoroughbred Alliance is. What are you doing? That's because our work is happening behind the scenes. We are working with the existing organizations in a dual, I'd say, consultative and advocacy role to get them to make changes that are much needed. It's one thing to have an idea. It's another thing to implement it. We're not the ones necessarily implementing it at present, but we are trying to get the organizations across organized American horse racing, and in some cases breeding, to start making changes, to modernize, to essentially evolutionize American horse racing. And in January of 2024, after we spent 2 or 3 months literally sort of kicking around a variety of ideas, Mike said, I think we've got to move in the aftercare space first. That just seems to be the most obvious space that can be helped, that needs the help. And I want you to dive in head first and learn as much as you can about it. And that was 2024 for me. And I really got, in all good ways, my hands as dirty as I possibly could to understand the scope of the retired racehorse space, of incentive programs, of sanctuary, of rescue, of slaughter issues, of the funding models that exist, how different tracks have different programs, where state governments come into play, where the Jockey Club resides with all of this, and also doing some comparative study. What's happening in other parts of the world? What are they doing right that we're not doing? What are we doing right that they're not doing? And trying to come up with some very high level overviews for existing racing executives that they can understand what needs to happen, and trying to develop a funding model so that we could pump a lot more money into this space to get it to where it needs to be.
Yeah, I'm interested, in like your kind of takeaways from that, because it's one of those things that sounds easy in theory. Like every horse, when it retires, should have a place to go. Like, at its purest sense, like that's thoroughbred aftercare. But, as Joy and I have learned, and, as I've learned at RRP, like the more you dig into it, there's so many different moving parts, and I think at RRP, we've identified like 8 different theoretical branches of aftercare, because it's not as easy as like send horse to adoption organization, adopt horse. Like if there's no demand for those horses,
cutter for sure.
No, there is no one solution that fits.
Yep.
Because some tracks you need to have that direct market where people will purchase a horse and put some money back into that trainer's pocket so that they can keep going. And then other places they can afford to donate a horse with money to another organization. That's like one example, and then as you mentioned, these track-based programs. And then what I think people don't realize is that every state has its own like racing governing body. Like there is no national governing body for horse racing. There's the Jockey Club, and then there's other organizations that work nationally, but like every state has its own way of functioning too, which I didn't realize right away either until I got more into it. And I was like, oh, this is vastly confusing to me.
I think you could argue that horse racing is probably the most regulated sport, right? Horse racing and boxing have a lot of similarities. Boxing, if it were more popular, I think you could argue it, has as much. No, I'm not even going to go that far. They don't. Horse racing just has more regulation. It's always been tied to the government. Individual states have the ability to offer it. They do. Some of them govern it tougher than others. Now we have the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority that's in play on more of a national level, and that's dealing with a lot of things in the court process right now. But horse racing is incredibly regulated. But if we were to summarize, say, what are some of the basic findings I've had over the last 12 months? Number one, without question, top of the list, everything, every organization, every entity, every initiative is underfunded. There's just no question. The pain of finding enough funding to do what we should be doing versus what we are doing is totally widespread. There's just no question about it. Costs have increased, but the funding has not met that. So pain is incredibly widespread in that if you are feeling the pinch, literally everyone else is too. So there's no question in my mind of that. Now, if we look at what organized funding looks like, there's certainly some thoroughbred industry sources that grant money to various aftercare entities. The Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance would be an example of one, and I'm sure listeners are very familiar with it and have heard of it plenty. But they're an accrediting body, and then they grant money to the organizations they accredit. And that's what they do. for example, Retired Racehorse Project is not an accredited organization by the TAA because it's not physically housing horses,
Right.
either rehabilitating them or helping rehome them or retrain them, right? On its own, it is not. And so if you can't get accredited, you can't get money as a grantee, which there's limitations there.
Right.
There's Thoroughbred Charities of America, which is a different story, and it can grant money to something like the Retired Racehorse Project. It can grant money to things like Take Two, which is a great incentive program that's run out of New York. So you have these rules and standards that exist across the space, but everyone across it is struggling. It's just to what degree. Those degrees vary. I was even speaking to an organization today that's been accredited for years, and they're actually wondering if it's even worth going back through the process and getting reaccredited right now because they're in such just horrific financial straits at present. It's like, is it even worth doing all the work and being as attentive to some of the things that it requires of us?
Wow.
So understanding that is pretty important because we want to generate a funding model that will put a whole heck of a lot more money into the retired racehorse ecosystem. Right? It's not just about brick and mortar programs, but it's about incentives. What can we do to encourage individuals to adopt/buy retired racehorses, acquire retired racehorses, and then train them into other disciplines, whether they be incredibly active disciplines or less active disciplines. Whatever it is, we have a breed. We should be looking after it beyond its racing existence. And I think it's actually one of the greatest opportunities that the sport has is looking beyond just what happens on the racetrack. And it's why I was drawn to the Retired Racehorse Project and why I was very interested in becoming a board member. Driving demand for retired racehorses just makes sense, right? On an annual basis, half of your population is not going into the breeding shed, right? Most of that half of the population gelded, and many of them are capable to do plenty of other things and provide a tremendous amount of pleasure and get pleasure from their existence. And we need to be making that as widespread, available, informative, engaging as possible. And horse racing's fans are out there with retired racehorses. We just may have not have brought them into racing's fold. They're enjoying the back end of racing of horses in their post-racing careers. We want that to be more of a two-way street. And we also think that a heck of a lot more incentives can be propelled into the retired racehorse space. And I don't even think we're scratching the surface on that yet.
Yeah, I like that point, about off-track thoroughbred fans potentially being racing fans. I just wrote an op-ed about that myself. So I'm like, oh yes, that's like, a pet point of mine right now. But I think it's the other way around too. Like we're all fans of the breed. And it's just that breed happens to be good at many different things. And racing, obviously is the most high profile end of what these horses are doing. And I think, that's what they're bred for. That's where the most money is. But really, like, we're all just fans of the thoroughbred. And one of the approaches we've been taking is just trying to approach the thoroughbred life cycle as not racing and then something else. It's racing, hunter jumper, lesson horse, it's just continuation of the same horse doing the same things.
So Mike Rapoli owned Uncle Mo in his racing career and was still very much involved in his breeding career. And he just passed away a few months ago. And, it was obviously very emotional for Mike because it was Mike's really first good horse. And he was exceptional. He was a 2-year-old champion, missed the Derby, but, clearly was then very successful as a stallion. And someone reached out to me and said, please share our condolences with Mike. And I know you probably haven't heard this before, but while he was as great as a stallion in producing future racehorses, he actually was really good in producing competitive horses in retired disciplines. I think it might have been Hunter Jumper or something. I forget exactly what was said to me, but I'm like, wow, we don't often hear or market that from a racing perspective. Um, but our customer base is actually potentially so much wider with a retired racehorse than with an active in training horse, right? An active in training thoroughbred is so much more expensive to maintain, to feed, to care for. And trust me, I get it. Plenty of retired racehorses can be very expensive too. But when they're stabled at the racetrack in the heart of racehorse training, we actually have a very limited market for quote unquote our product. The retired racehorse ecosystem, we have a heck of a lot more potential customers. And that to me is a huge I'm not going to say untapped because that's not the right word. There's a reason we're having this conversation, right? Clearly it is being tapped. But it is, I'd say maybe a little underexposed. We could really be doing so much more. And I think this is one of the things really at the heart of some of our advocacy with organizations like the Jockey Club. The Jockey Club is the breed registry for thoroughbreds. And in that registrar function, the information that they are currently presenting to the public is from the time a horse first records a published workout to the time they run their last race. And then they only really care about you if you are perpetuating the breed, stallion or broodmare. Besides that, you fall off the organized radar. And I think that's a shortcoming. And where I see shortcoming, I also see opportunity. We have far more retired thoroughbreds in America than we have active thoroughbreds in America. Mm-hmm. So this market opportunity, I think, needs to be embraced, harnessed. We need to be better reporting data, recording information, sharing that with people across the sport, participants, retrainers, and the economy that goes with that is really quite substantial. So I've been most motivated by this as an opportunity, more so than what I think a lot of people in organized racing have oftentimes looked at the retired racehorse, just the general aftercare world, as more of a burden. I don't see it that way at all. I see this as tremendous opportunity, engagement, and it's waiting for us to develop it better.
Yeah, I love this. This is where I always feel, like I'm sure I sound like a broken record at this point on this show, because I'm always saying, if we can just get more people to the thoroughbred makeover, I think it can do so much. I don't want to say healing because it makes it sound like the relationship between equestrian and racing is damaged. And I don't think it's damaged. I just think there's a lot of misconceptions about what the other industry is doing.
Yeah.
But at the makeover, like I've seen this, and I'm not a very sentimental person. Like I don't get all weepy at things, but like if I see racing connections there who are in tears because they're so proud of their horse doing something in the Hunter Jumper, like they may have no idea what they're looking at, but they're teared up, and then the rider's teared up, and then I'm teared up, and I'm like, this is what we need. We need more of those moments.
Well, even like volunteers coming to see it. I mean, when you see that full circle connection, I think it starts to bridge the gap between the racing industry and then those who adopt and take care of those horses in those second careers after, and can remove some of the
like everyone's just there for the horses.
Positive parts that we sometimes hear about.
Right. Like they're there because they love the horses. And just because that person didn't love the horse the same way you did in the your relationship to that horse looks different than the person riding it now, or you're the person who rides it now and that relationship looks different from the person who came to every race and cheered it on. That doesn't mean either of those relationships are wrong. They're just different ways of approaching the same horse.
I thought it was a huge light bulb moment. Uh, I Mike had donated a horse to New Vocations in New York. It was a horse named Best Idea, who he was purchased by a woman out of, I think, the Rochester, Buffalo area, and retrained for the makeover last year. And she entered him in the competitive trail division. And this was an old horse of Rapoli stable. And so I trucked up the back there to go take a look. It was my first time witnessing competitive trail. And when I walked up and I saw the course, I saw, first couple horses going through competing. I'm like, this is fantastic. Like, it's a mental exercise far more than it is a physical exercise. Super low impact. You need to train the horse's mind as much as you're training them physically. And I was blown away because I looked at this and I thought almost any horse could do this if they had a retrainer. This could be wide open. The possibilities. And when I was exposed to it and saw it, my previous vision was more in the traditional equestrian pursuits, right? Horse jumping fence. That made sense to me. Some of the ranch work, I had that vision in my head. I didn't have that with competitive trail. And I was really, really taken by just how broad a category this could bring more people in to the overall experience of thoroughbreds are really smart.
Right.
And they can handle and quite enjoy this sort of pursuit. And I don't always get the words right in it. There is undoubtedly like a slightly different lexicon between the racing world and the retired racehorse world. So I apologize if I don't always say those things.
Oh, that's okay. Most equestrians love to be like, that's not the word, but that
I've been in those
that is not our
conversations
jam here,
before.
so it is fine.
I'm very self-aware. But it was a true light bulb for me. It took almost no time. I'm like, this is brilliant. Where this needs to be just bigger, bolder, brighter, more people, more involvement. Where is the competitive trail derby, right? Like this could be a whole thing. And it got me looking, at the time I was reached out to the U.S. Equestrian Federation and was just understanding kind of some trends on where thoroughbred participation as a registered horse with the USEF was. And unfortunately, it actually is declining. Most of the other breeds are increasing, but in terms of those registered with the USEF, it's declining. And the recognition that if we are to be good stewards of our own breed, we should be that at all stages in their life, not just the ones that take place within oval rails, right? And competitive trail to me was like that total light bulb, where, gosh, there's a huge opportunity here to engage people regularly. You really can do this. And to me, it was just, I saw a bright future. Just by witnessing that event, that single event at the RRP. And so it really has motivated me ever since.
I love that. We're going to have to get you on a horse next.
Gosh, I don't think the horse would appreciate that, Kristen. But yes.
You are very tall. I was struck by that when I finally met you in person. I was like, that is a tall man. But my husband's also very tall. He also rides a thoroughbred. So don't worry. There is a thoroughbred for everyone.
Treats, Pat. They'll appreciate you if you bring enough
treats. We got to find the right one. It's going to be great. Well, Pat, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much for the insight into what NTA is doing, and all the changes that you guys are starting to bring about in the racing world and the aftercare space, because I think that's just such an important way to bring everybody together. So I know you mentioned, NTA doesn't have a website, but where's a good place that people could follow along if they want to kind of get the scoop on what's coming up next?
Honestly, it is sort of tough based on where we are at present. I do suggest if you can tolerate Mike's tweets, every word is curated by him directly at Rapoli Stable on X. You will tend to kind of hear or see where maybe things are going or direction where things are going. But what I'd suggest is people need to just keep their ear to the ground within the existing racing community. And if you see positive things happening, maybe a little bit of that is being influenced by us and by how we are pushing existing organizations to engage and improve. And maybe some of it is directly, maybe some of it's indirectly, or maybe it's not at all coming from us. But that's where the work is taking place. And feel free, people can reach out to me on Twitter at Pat Cummings NTA. Happy to talk to people, or if anyone wants to connect, you can connect to you, Kristen, and just forward it on to me, and be happy to talk.
Yeah, we'll get you hooked up. Well, very cool, Pat. Thanks very much for hopping on.
Thank you, guys. All the best, and keep up the great work.
Cashel has been crafting top-notch products since 1986, designed to make your ride safer, more convenient, and downright enjoyable. From the Crusader Fly Mask, the ultimate fly mask, trusted by riders nationwide, to the blanket top performance felt pad with pressed felt with merino fleece. It's like a spa day for your horse's back. To the beautiful beaded halters, adjustable, durable, and gorgeous. Visit CashelCompany.com today and gear up for the ride of a lifetime. Cashel, where quality meets the saddle. Well, Joy, it is the time of year to start thinking about getting those horses back into shape, especially if you were like me and your horses have just been standing around all winter waiting for better weather. So to help equestrians figure out how to safely condition those off-track thoroughbreds, we have a new article in the RRP Education Library. Actually was written by, I believe, a listener, Sarah Welk Bainham. She is a contributor to the RRP Education Library. We're happy to have her. So this article is called Conditioning Off-Track Thoroughbreds, short, sweet, and to the point. Straight off the racetrack, thoroughbreds are athletic and full of potential, but conditioning them for a new career takes time, strategy, and careful management. From building strength and endurance to preventing injuries, a well-planned conditioning program sets them up for long-term success, whether they've recently retired from racing or have been off the track for a while, like mine. In this article, you will learn how conditioning affects a thoroughbred's body, signs the workload might be too much, and the best exercises to safely build fitness, strength, and stamina. So if you are a long-form content lover like myself, head over to the RRP Education Library. It's therrp.org/library, and this article can be found in our training section under Saddle.
Kristen, we're going to Equine Affair.
We are going to Equine Affair. You can meet up with us in our official listener meetup at the Voinovich Arena for the 11 a.m. breed demo. That's going to be on Saturday, April 12th. We don't know what breed it is. It's going to be a fun surprise. And then we're going to hang out and watch Wendy Murdoch's session and then discuss.
I really can't wait for it. And also for our auditors, there will be an HRN auditor dinner Friday evening. Details are in the auditor Facebook group. If you are not an auditor and are interested in becoming one, you can sign up at patreon.com/Horse Radio Network for as little as $3 a month.
Make sure you stop by the Horse Radio Network booth while you're at Equine Affair. We will be in and out Friday afternoon and Saturday, and you might catch us recording an episode.
And make sure that you follow our Facebook page so you can save the event as a reminder. Can't wait to see you there.
Want to reach a passionate, engaged audience of horse lovers? The Horse Radio Network, with thousands of listeners worldwide, offers unique sponsorship opportunities to connect your brand with horse owners, riders, and enthusiasts. Over 90% of our listeners have bought a product from an HRN ad in the past year. Partner with HRN and take your brand to the next level. Visit www.horseradionetwork.com/advertise today.
Well, it's that time of the episode where we bring on one of our friends from New Vocations. And today we have Amanda Tucker with us. Welcome back to the show, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's always a pleasure. And I feel like we have tons to talk about. But the first thing I want to hit on, it's getting close to Land Rover, which is always an exciting time. I mean, spring is really underway. I feel like it really kicks off horse show season for all of us. But there's always an event at New Vocations. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, we kick off the best weekend all year with our open barn and barbecue, which is my favorite event of the year. And like you said, the weather's going to be amazing. Spring is finally in the air out here on the bluegrass. So we have our big event and we have demos. And I think we have about 4 or 5 different food trucks coming. So it's just going to be a hoot.
I love it. And what I especially love about the event is it's free for people to come, which is always great, and get a chance to see the property, see the horses in a way that typically you have to make a special appointment for. So it's nice to get there with all the commotion. And I believe that's happening Thursday, the 24th of April, right?
That's right. Yep.
Perfect. Well, if anyone's interested in going, make sure to go to the website. There's details there. And hopefully we'll see some of you there.
Yeah, we can't wait to see you.
Yes. And speaking of potentially adopting horses, one of the things we don't necessarily always talk about, but probably should, is when they come home, it's super important to introduce them safely to their new pasture friends. You're doing this constantly at New Vocations. Do you have some best practices as far as how do you introduce them safely? And how do we make determinations if it's a good match or not?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got like a handful coming in every week and a handful leaving every week. So we are constantly rotating our pasture buddies and moving everyone around and introducing new friends. So the way we go about it is we like to introduce them next to each other in a stall first so they can kind of meet and greet with that barrier in between them. And then once they're comfortable with each other, we will start with just single turnout in a smaller paddock. So we have the luxury that we have lots of different paddocks, which I'm sure not everyone does, but ideally we love to turn them out by themselves so they can see their new friends. And then once they're settled and comfortable, then we'll kind of monitor the herd dynamics and we'll buddy them up with someone who we think they would likely get along with. And then once they've been out with that buddy for a few days and they've proven that they're solid citizens and they're going to get along, we will then take that buddy unit and put them out in the bigger turnout with their other friends.
I love that. And I totally agree. Not everyone has that opportunity, but I only had one pasture really. And I have my riding arena, which was adjacent to the pasture. So what I would do when we had new horses come in is I would do partial turnout for them for the day. So it always made me feel a little guilty that they'd be stalled for part of the day, but we could let them out in individual partnerships and kind of get a safe chance to meet. And then the new horse would come back for a while and let the rest of the herd out. So it was tedious, but it was an easy way to do it when you had that limited space.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it depending on your setup.
Absolutely. And do you ever get profiles when people are bringing the horses to you? Like, they're like, oh, this horse, super social butterfly, or this horse tends to squeal, isn't super social, or do you have to figure it out on the fly?
We generally figure it out on the fly because we get a lot of them. They come straight from the track. So a lot of them haven't even been turned out when they come to us. So it's a big learning curve.
Yeah. Okay. And with an adopter, I mean, you guys give such excellent profiles coming in. Are there things they should think about when they're thinking about a new horse, how it fits into their herd dynamic that they might currently have at home?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest questions I get asked all the time is about mixed turnout. And that's something that we struggle to speak on a little bit because we don't do that at New Vocations. So that's always something to consider. Whether you have a mixed turnout or not. And then also that just generally the herd dynamics. And we try and explain the horses very well so they understand if they're getting someone that's more dominant out in the field or someone who's more of a loner or someone who likes to play.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for that. Again, it's one of those things that we don't always think about. We get very distracted by the photos, but it's something very important to think about when you're introducing someone new to the herd, what that dynamic's going to look like.
Absolutely.
Cute photos. I am drooling over our adoptable horse of the week. Tell us more about Hurricane Dream.
Oh my gosh. Hurricane Dream is a dream. And he's actually a European dream because he came over from France and he won buku cash over in France.
Oh, so he's a fancy pony.
He is a very fancy boy. He ran in the Pegasus World Cup, so he even comes with his own hat.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, with his name on it. So his connections gave us a hat to go with his future adopter.
Very cute. Well, I love him. He's a stunning chestnut. And while he's got his winter fuzzies on right now in these photos, he is going to be that metallic chestnut color once you get to summer. He's exactly like my chestnut in that way. So I know he's going to be a real stunner, and he's got that beautiful blaze coming down his face. So a chestnut with some chrome is always stunning to look at in the ring.
Absolutely. And he is a class act. I mean, he's such a professional. Someone's going to absolutely adore this guy.
Yeah. So going back to your leveling system, I love it, by the way. He is a level 1 in many areas, which is a very ideal place for someone who maybe this is their first off the track they're taking on themselves, or they're ready for their first project horse with a trainer, a very easy horse to approach. But it looks like he's got a lot of opportunity to go in the show ring too, that he's able to move forward with very minimal limitations, it looks like.
Yeah, he's going to be a very AMI-friendly guy. He's wonderful under saddle, but really easy and uncomplicated. And he retired with just some inflammation, so nothing serious. So pretty much the sky's the limit for this guy.
I love it. Well, he looks super cute. Of course, you have to be an approved adopter. And what I always say whenever we bring a horse with this height range in, he's the perfect height for pretty much everyone. He's 15.3, so he's right in that sweet spot. And his adoption fee is $2,500. So if you're looking for a horse, he looks like he'd very much clean up in the dressage, hunter ring, and probably actually could even hit the Western ranch side of it. Make sure to check out Hurricane Dream at newvocations.org. Get your adoption applications in. They're good for 2 years. And then hopefully we'll be seeing some of you guys at the barbecue during Land Rover weekend. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. I love it.
You can find our show notes and links to today's guests on the website at horseradionetwork.com. Like us on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for Retired Racehorse Radio. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at The Horseback Writer. My email is kristen@horseradionetwork.com.
You can find me on Instagram at MisfitMare, and my email is joy@horseradionetwork.com. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Kentucky Performance Products, Catchel Company, and Ride TV, and to our partners, New Vocations Racehorse Adoption Program and the Retired Racehorse Project. Don't forget to check out all the other shows on Horse Radio Network, part of Equine Network, at horseradionetwork.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, as it really helps us grow. Remember to set your goals high and love to learn from every ride
and cowside leg. And we'll see you in Ohio at Equine Affair.
Yes, we will. See you there, guys.